Hello. Let's see what we have here. I thought it would be interesting to maybe save this as a video recording. I'm preparing the next scene for AP, and I need a couple characters to be designed for it that I wanted to include in the scene at the last moment, and they need a design, so I have this little color sketch that I made for the environment, and so I need the characters to be added to that. So I have this guy here. I made a really quick sketch the other day, and I need him to have a face, so since he's gonna be involved in a conversation with angels and a couple diabolics, so I need a design for him. And for the diabolics, well, one of them already has a design, but the other one doesn't. So he's a very old character of mine, this dude, and so he has a design, but it's very old, and so I may need to update it a little bit. So I brought the old design in here. It's this one, yeah. So this is a very old design. I think it's from 2011 or 12, maybe it's old. And one thing I noticed is that he looks a little bit like Mordigor, that's already a character, and so I thought he should be a little different. I'll probably change the hairstyle, for example. One thing about designing characters for AP is that I rely a lot on the silhouette of the characters and things and creatures, and then on the color patterns of them. One thing I noticed, there's something a little bit different between designing a human-like character and designing a diabolic, mainly because diabolics don't really have a face, at least when they don't. Some of them do, but the one that I'm designing for this scene, aside from this character, has a very not human-like face, so it's two different processes to design them. So this guy is human, it's a dragon, and so they look very human. And so the things I'm gonna work on this one from the front, because that's where the main features are for human-like characters, is the front of the face. And they also have a silhouette working from the side and so on, but it's a lot easier, and I can basically guess the profile silhouette based on the face already, the front of the face. So I have his features here, and so I as a start, since he already existed a bit, I've just very simply traced his features translated them in the style of AP, which is very simple. So I have a few lines in there, not much. Basically the lines that I have on the AP characters are either eyelashes, eyebrows, some holes and crevices of the face, so that would be behind the nostrils or under the nose if it's casting a shadow, and then between the lips, and usually underneath the chin, and then some of the creases inside the ears. So these are going to be 1 or 2 colors at the most. These usually a dark skin shade, and then something usually a little darker for the around the eyes and the eyebrow because it's a hair color, and sometimes it's just a darker reddish tone for the lips. So and then there is the skin color. So in the original drawing here, there's a lot of colors. It's still a simplified style that I had at the time, but it's still too many colors for my comics. So I had to choose about 3 colors, I would say, for a face. If the character has some facial hair, which I decided to add a little bit for this one, so it's not as clean shaved looking, then it adds another color. But usually there is only the main skin shade, the skin tone, very neutral, and then maybe there is a lighter tone that I put with a soft gradient wherever the light source is, and then there is the shaded tone. So it's usually 3, and a 4th if there's, if it's a male and it has some hair around the mouth, that will add a little colder shade depending on what the hair color is. So there is the tracing here of his face, and I changed it a little bit. I tried to enhance the features that I thought were interesting and different from Mordigard, this other character that I have. So I made him a little different than he looks in here, because he kind of has the same staring intensity as Mordigard has, except for doesn't have the glowing eyes, but it's still too similar. So for this one I just went with another kind of a different smirk, and the raised eyebrows that kind of make him look a little inquisitive and I don't know, kind of like a smartass maybe. I'm not sure. Made his skin tone a little bit more yellowish or a little more olive. And so here is as a simplified shape. It's still not the final. Of course, after this I want to sculpt him in ZBrush to really assert his features. But this is, since he's already there, I mean, I'm going to use that as a starting point. So here you can see how it's very much simplified. I have just a few brushes that I use for drawing in AP, which is this brush, the one that I used for the line work. It's like this. It's kind of textured and a little messy, and I kind of like it that way, because I don't want any of the line work to be too clean and look too neat and shiny and awesome. So that's what I use, and it will only be work also. So only for the line. So there's the ears. They use usually the corner of the nose, the shadow underneath. There's gonna be a nostril if it's visible. There's gonna be the lips here, and usually the inside of the mouth as well if they're speaking. And then decide the shape of the face. Sometimes they won't be a complete shape. There'll be holes here and there because it's not what I rely on mostly. So then there is the regular tone, and then some light. I'll take a big brush here. I'll put some light like that, and then the shade, I will use one of these brushes, which is very simple, very efficient, and I'll just give a sense of the volume wherever it is. I have this one is pointed to the top. Just like that. Underneath the eyes. So here I have a few more colors just to give some flavor to the character, but I'll usually try to keep it restricted. I don't think I will add this. I mean, I can keep going on and adding details, but I have to try to keep it limited for the purpose of the comic. I can't really describe too much, so I'll try to use the same tones that I've used here and there. I get a lot of information just from this. So here I have another brush for the hair, the facial hair. Here, very quickly done. And there I use 2 shades. Then I'll put the brush mode to darken and add the lips. Usually the lips have 2 shades, one for the top and one for the bottom lip. And all of these colors change every time the scene changes, and the light and the mood of the place, so they have to be readjusted a little bit every time. But the number of colors stays the same. And then same gradient here for the lip. Okay, then I have something for the eye, and I think I like it when it's dark like this. Then a shade for the eyeball. Very simple and quickly done. Then the eye. For the eye, I will use one of these default round brush. I have to pay attention to the size of it. Otherwise, you can look make the character look very different or very wrong. I think this is too small. So that's how I I draw the face. So I have to arrange all these different elements into a recognizable character. So to do that, I will bring this guy into a ZBrush and sculpt him from every angle, and then when I sculpt, I will look at specifically the parts where I use the line. I have to see these into the sculpture. I don't really need much of anything else. I need to see I mean, all these shadows here, usually I put them by myself afterward. The ZBrush sculpt really helps me to place down the lines of the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, although the mouth will change a lot depending on the facial expression and all of that. So unless they have a kind of neutral expression, I won't use the model for that. But yeah, so this is one part of the design. It's the actual features and the highlights of the features, and then I need the rest of it. I need the actual silhouette of the character, and that includes his hairstyle and the colors, so his outfit. So I have this already done for you. So I have this one done. I changed his hair, you can tell from the original, to make it a little different again. It might not be the final design. Maybe he has long hair behind, something like that will distinguish him from a character like Modigo. There's also yeah, I guess that's not really I was thinking it has a scar here, but I think Modigo has one on the other eye, so it's just really useless. So maybe I will forget that detail and make his eyebrows whole. Like that. Yeah. And then yeah, so for this dragon, so these guys, they are a different type of dragons than is Ravan and Modiga. They live in a different parts of the world, and so they are a little bit different. So I wanted to show that in this one character, since we're not gonna see a whole lot of them except for him. And so their colors, I always start the silhouette with a black, so they really stand out, and then I add the light and the colors in there. I want to have reds in there. I still want to have some black in the design as well, but I can't have too much of it that it would look like a diabolic either. So I'll just find some colors and a little bit more, make it a little bit more colorful, and have a little more texture details, like in here there's some gold and there's some white, there's some of the blue in his hair. I would like to have some blue in some other parts as well. And yeah, of course the horse is obviously a regular horse as well, so that helps to distinguish from the diabolic, since they tend to have completely dark and devil looking horses. Okay, so this guy is ready to go into ZBrush, so maybe I will record that. Maybe in a make a separate video for that. Now maybe I'll take a look at the diabolic character. So you can see here I put just some figures in here. So it's that guy. So the diabolic here is a Protean. He's it's not like the Hatorians or the Astorians that we saw before. It's a third kind of diabolics. There's only 3 kinds. That's all of them. So it's a third kind, and something that make them this category stand out from the other two is that they are the least human-like of the diabolics. If we put them side by side on the scale of very human and very normal to very, very monstrous, they are at the end of the scope. So they often they have very, very monstrous like heads, but the body is usually human-like, usually, not all the time, but they have this weird contrast between having very monstrous heads and a very regular kind of casual looking bodies and attire. Like they look like lawyers and like business people. They like very absurd in the sense, like the very weird combination, and they kind of they're almost comical in a way. Like they're scary and comical at the same time. So I wanted this guy to have all these characteristics in this one character. So I made a bunch of sketches while I was sketching the pages, and so I made maybe 6 or 7 really quick doodles like that until I got this one. And I work since it's a diabolic, I work from a profile. I don't work from the front like I would do with a human. In here I put some color patterns in there, as if the front of his face is black and then the rest of it has a lighter gray and reddish shade. So then from the sketch I draw him again in the style of the comic. So to do that I started with a silhouette, and it became this, and I drew him from kind of a 3/4 view because I wanted to see him in 3D, see what he would look like. So this really started as a black shape. So it was I drew it like this, and I was playing around with the volume of his face right here until I found, hey, I'm starting to like this. He's kind of it was looking more human in this silhouette than he did on this one. Slightly more human. There's this strange little pointy nose, and I kind of like that. And then I started to add this one shade, the light at the top of his head like this. And then I started playing here with how the light falls on this really strange face. I put down the color pattern here, so there is light here, even though he's not, this part of his face is not lit, but it's on there anyway. And then they had this weird draw thing. I had to place back the really strange, very strange horns and spikes from the top of his head, like that. See, so far I have only 2 colors for him, and it's starting to see that it has volume and it has some kind of definition. I think his jaw is going a little lower like that. Okay, and you see all these very simple shapes have a strong impact on what the character looks like in the comic. It's really not very defined, but it has a lot of consequences visually. And so then they had the teeth like this, very much in the same fashion as we saw for the story in Diabolic that we saw in chapter 1. And then I also choose colored highlights for them. Let's see. So in chapter 1 we had this one. So this was an historian, Diabolic, like this gal, and she has this is very, it looks detailed, but it's very simple also. It's just 4 colors. It's the silhouette, the shade of the light at the top, and then a highlight basically, and then the red pattern. So it has a kind of ochre highlight. And for the Protusians, I want a blue highlight, like the horses have, and like the special swords. So, because the horses actually are Protusian, they're not historians. They just the Protusians make the horses, and then they trade them to the other Diabolics. Okay, so it has a blue highlights, and wherever I put the highlights is very important to define in defining the features. So there's all the spikes. This one I decided to put the highlights in some strange places, as if it's kind of between a horn and a blade, but it's not one or the other completely. And this one is a blade-like thing. So anyway, I got to this result, and I really like that one. He looked absolutely ridiculous, and he looks like kind of like a clown, a very scary clown. Is the eyes very far apart, and so it makes him not distinguishingly not human, but at the same time it's not very far away from a human skull thing. So he's kind of funny and disturbing at the same time. That's what I wanted.